A poem. I'm thankful for watching the movies this week. I'm thankful that mostly they did not reek. I'm thankful to look at Brad Pitt's abs. I'm thankful Gina Davis is really rad. I'm thankful for explosions and shock and awe. I'm thankful for Statham as Deckard Shaw. I'm thankful for Idris, so cool and evil. But mostly I'm thankful there was no Vin Diesel. We watched Thelma and Louise and Hobbs and Shaw.
Oh my God! Wait, wasn't Vin Diesel in Thelma and Louise? Oh my God! Welcome to Citizen Kane versus everyone, where we compare a widely considered great movie with a movie that is widely considered to be more on the schlocky side, and ask ourselves honestly, which is better. Now, my name is Jack Rennie, and I'm joined by my two friends, Mr.
Sean Jacklin
and
Daniel Benoit.
And so if you caught that, the movies this week are I mean, obviously Hobbs and Shaw and Thelma and Louise. The connective tissue seeming to be that these are like buddy movies. Is
They
that
have their names in the titles.
They have their
name-
names
the name
in the
of-
titles.
yeah.
But also it's like it's like the ultimate feminist buddy movie versus the ultimate
The bro movie.
testosterone driven bro movie.
I suppose so. That is true.
And they're also both kind of like car movies.
yeah.
Like they are both in that vein as well.
Yeah, like kind of. Although Hobbs
One-
and Shaw is less of a car movie, which is weird because it's part of the Fast and Furious franchise.
Yeah.
It's not much. It's just it doesn't involve driving as much. It just like has shots where it's like, hey, remember cars?
I was going to say one of these movies definitely shoots its car scenes really well, and the other movie is Hobbs and Shaw.
That's a funny point to start right away with, because for a movie that's part of the Fast and Furious franchise, the vehicle action was way better in Thelma and Louise.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, the vehicle action in Hobbs and Shaw was just fucking bonkers. They was
Incoherent at times.
yeah, at times. That whole movie is ridiculous.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to say that this week we're comparing a movie to what I think was a video game trailer. Like I'm not. It was a long one, but I'm looking forward to seeing some real gameplay.
I guess we need some background for the listeners, eh? Some synopses, perhaps.
Yes.
Yeah.
Synopsitize. if you will.
Synopsitize. Okay, I guess I'll go first. So
Yeah, you brought it up, Dan. So
I know. I'm just chomping at the bit here, guys. So Thelma and Louise is a movie from the early '90s, starring Susan Sarandon,
And Gina and Davis.
and Gina and Davis.
oh, they're all great.
Yeah. Directed by Ridley Scott, which I
Yeah.
did not know.
What?
My first note is directed by Ridley Scott.
Mine too. I have it just like Ridley Scott ?
Yeah, same thing.
I think that's my exact note. I didn't know this was Ridley. Oh boy.
But I mean, you learned very quickly that it's Ridley. I mean, like that. There is some beautiful shit in that movie.
Yeah.
Anyways, Cole's Notes version. This is a movie about two women who, kind of on their journey to rejecting a world that is run by aggressive and stupid men, and it starts with Thelma and Louise embarking on a road trip that is supposed to just be like a weekend getaway vacation that turns into an all-out run from the cops very quickly when they stop in at a country bar en route to their hotel, and Thelma has an abusive sexual encounter with a guy that she meets there, and Louise ends up shooting him in the heart, and things kind of spiral out of control from there. The rest of the movie is them kind of trying to make sense of what to do next as the cops slowly get hotter and hotter on their tail. They encounter a young cowboy hitchhiker played by a very young and sexy Brad Pitt.
Ooh boy.
Oh God, who steals Louise's life savings and and the movie is basically them trying to get to Mexico to evade getting arrested by the cops, and just kind of slowly becoming more and more comfortable with this outlaw lifestyle.
Yeah,
I don't want to give too much away, but that's but that it's hard to give a short, brief synopsis of this movie because like so much happens along the way.
Yeah, it's a fugitive movie, so they're on the run, and even they did put it in these terms at one point where they kind of say it starts with that initial act of killing that guy who was trying to rape them, and then it's a snowball effect of how, and from the initial decision of not going to the police, it's like it keeps building and building and building until the end.
The end.
Until it's like a multi-statewide manhunt
with like helicopters and dozens of cruisers and
snipers.
Yeah. Anyways, we can get in.
Fascinating.
Yeah. Now that I mean, what I thought was actually pretty interesting about Thelma and Louise was how similar it was to Hobbs and Shaw. So Sean, if you want to.
Well, it's clear that the director of Hobbs and Shaw was thoroughly influenced by Ridley Scott. So Hobbs and Shaw is obviously, it's about George Bernard Shaw goes back in time to philosopher Thomas Hobbes's era, and they meet Jonathan Locke, and the three of them work together towards bringing the Enlightenment to Europe.
You're such a fucking nerd, Sean. I swear to God, sometimes it's...
That's fan fiction. No, Hobbs and Shaw is about Luke Hobbs and Deckard Shaw, played by Dwayne Johnson and Jason Statham, respectively. So we open, MI6 is sending their crack squad, led by Statham's sister, Hattie, to retrieve a virus. So topical. And in trying to get the virus, our bad guy, played by Idris Elba, Brixton Lore, he fights MI6, he gets the virus, but then she gets it and she stabs it into herself, so she becomes the carrier for this encapsulated virus. And the movie is Hobbs and Shaw are tasked by their respective governments to track down Hattie and make sure the virus doesn't fall into the hands of Brixton Lore, who also is a biologically super engineered Titan soldier. And eventually their chases and pursuits lead them through the streets of London and over airplanes where they get many cameo appearances of varying degrees of quality, and they arrive in Samoa for the final battle scene. They have none of their technology left, and because his mom got rid of all their guns. So the final battle is between this like super electric soldier man and them and their clubs and axes. So.
And propane tanks.
Yeah. Oh.
You know, it's funny. I normally would have wanted to synopsize or summarize Hobbs and Shaw this week, but I wanted to throw it to you because I expected it to be a much more just angry and aggressive summary.
No, man, I got wrapped up in my philosopher fan fiction, so. No, I had a legitimately great week with these films. I mean, I've never seen either of them. It was a little weird dropping into Hobbs and Shaw without having seen any of the Fast and Furious films, because there was a lot of like unspoken tension between characters that I had no idea what was going on.
Well, the only two characters I think that are from the original franchise are Hobbs and Shaw. Everybody else in the movie is new.
Is Helen Mirren?
Oh, Helen Mirren, right? She's come up once or twice. Yeah, but I mean, like, you don't. What I liked about Hobbs and Shaw was that you don't need a lot of background information.
No.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I have also not seen any of the Fast and Furious movies, so this was an interesting first jump into them. Am I wrong? I think I heard this before through someone else that like, so this movie introduces a lot of like their family, where it's like it's like Shaw's sister, and then Hobbs's whole Samoan family.
Yeah.
But like there's been no mention of their families in like the 10 movies leading up to this, right? Except for the family that they have
Well,
with each other.
I've seen 1, 2, Tokyo Drift, and then 8.
Is that a game?
No, Tokyo Drift was
1,
like the
2,
first.
Tokyo Drift.
3, 4, buckle in. Okay.
Yeah.
But Jason Statham and The Rock didn't come into the franchise until like 6 or 7. So there's not a whole bunch of background with their characters, but I think the only people that you've seen from their family before that was Helen Mirren and The Rock's daughter.
Right.
So I didn't, yeah. But I mean, that's a big plot. That's a big plot point for The Rock in this movie, was the fact that he's kind of kept his family abandoned, like hidden and like a secret that he, you know what I mean? Like he doesn't want any attachment to them for like his entire life. So there wouldn't be any mention or any importance put on them before now.
Was Ryan Reynolds outside of his Deadpool suit in any of the other films?
Yeah, I was gonna say, was Deadpool in previous movies as well?
No, I don't know. I mean, that was the first time that I remember seeing him. So
Okay.
I'm after seeing these movies, I'm convinced that Hobbs and Shaw is just a prequel to Deadpool. This is him prior to getting into that agent becomes the like bounty hunter that Ryan Reynolds' character in Deadpool becomes, and I'm also convinced that Thelma and Louise is a prequel to
Hobbs and Shaw.
To National Treasure, and Harvey Keitel's character gets promoted after his Thelma and Louise work, eventually getting his way up to the FBI.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's good. And he lives in a few countries along the way, so he loses the accent. Or part of his like Freemason mission is to go undercover as a different detective.
Yeah.
Correct.
That was one character that really confused me in Thelma and Louise, was Harvey Keitel's character and what his investment was in this case, because there was an implication that he had some kind of history with them or something, right? Like it was implied that he knew them or knew Louise in some capacity, because didn't he say he knew what happened to her in Texas? And then also he broke into her apartment and then saw like the photo of her as a kid and was like, hey, Lucky or some shit.
I think him knowing about Texas was like him putting clues together based on like what people who knew her, like the interviews he's been doing, I think.
Yeah, I didn't catch that stuff you're saying, Dan. I didn't catch that.
Oh, it seemed like a big part of the plot, because I was racking my brain trying to figure out why he was so invested in saving these women, and it seemed like they were trying to imply that he knew Louise or had some kind of prior history or connection to her. So I don't know. I was hoping you guys could feel that.
Yeah,
I was also I watched this movie last night at like midnight, so I was also kind of dozing off by the end. I know, me.
So incorrigible. I just kind of got the impression more that he had seen this kind of situation happen before in other cases, and he was trying to keep it from going to where he knew it could go. I didn't get the impression that it was that he specifically knew one of these women.
Yeah, I think because when he tells her he knows about Texas, that's the last thing he says to her on the phone, I'm pretty sure, when she's in the little cafe, and then she hangs up.
Yeah.
I think that was his like last ditch effort to make that connection and prevent her from going and doing something rash. And it backfired.
but she had it seemed pretty clear that she had kept Texas a secret from everybody. So other people that he would have spoken to wouldn't have known about Texas. She didn't bring it up.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Huh.
I don't know. For people wondering, Harvey Keitel plays what, like the chief detective on the case, essentially, on this, what starts as just a murder case and then becomes the fugitive case. He's kind of the chief inspector on it until it's like kind of taken over by larger.
Yeah.
It's taken out of his hands more or less by the end. He's not in control of it. Yeah, the feds. But he's walking this line where he's really trying to. You get the idea that he's really trying to save them. He kind of. He's trying to get a hold of them to say, I can only help you if you stop, kind of thing, like this kind of language. And he's trying to keep other law enforcement people from like letting it escalate. But also, the movie was really, I mean, felt ahead of its time for like how it addressed
Oh yeah.
like misogyny in the world, in particular with like the police force. Like just there's like it's mentioned a couple times, but one time they say it so bluntly where one of the women is like, oh, like they're not gonna believe that, believe me when I say that he raped me. I was people saw
Yeah.
me dancing with him all night. They'll think that I wanted it. And you're like, ugh. And another time they're like, police officers never believe women on this kind of thing. And I was like, ugh. Like it's 91. So it's not like it's a new thing.
No, and the movies, and just to bring up in contrast to that, the movie's depiction of men, with the exception of like Jimmy, most of the time, every single man in this film is a complete child.
Yeah.
And is to an extent a buffoon, but in particular, and I understand making them that way is to create this tapestry in which these two otherwise normal women would thrive, except for the idiocy of the men that are in their lives and keep getting thrown at them. The husband, was it Harlan?
Daryl. Harlan was the guy that tries to rape her. Yeah,
I believe it's Shooter McGavin.
Yeah, it is.
Is technically
playing Shooter McGavin.
That's where else I know him from. I only know him from Requiem for a Dream, and I was like, I know I've seen him in other stuff.
Yeah, you're thinking of Billy or Happy Gilmore.
Yeah.
With the exception of, him in particular, and then the truck driver that they blow up his truck.
Who we need to talk about after you make this comment, because.
But they're so over the top bad people.
Yeah.
That with a modern reading of this thing, it actually takes away from the message that they're trying to make. Because they're so buffoonish. And buffoons do exist, but like you're making a choice to present that as the choice.
Yeah, it's that tricky thing where you want to show misogyny, so you show kind of monstrous behaving men, and that makes the average man look at it and go, well, that's not me. That's those shitty guys. And it's like, oh, it's kind of everyone, all of you sometimes. So come on,
Yeah, although there are definitely men like both of those characters that that exist. So it's not like they're unrealistic people. I mean, I was questioning if the truck driver had some kind of like mental disability or something happening there, because he seemed like he was intentionally a cartoon character.
Well, just because like half of his lines were like, huh? Like once he got out of the truck, thinking that he was going to have sex with them, he was like, what?
And also, it looked like he didn't have control of his lips, really. He was just like,
no,
fuck you! Like, it was intense, but...
And most of his lines would have been said by the, like, rich oil baron from The Simpsons.
Yeah, I'll say, oh.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, if you also look at it in terms of the movie as being portrayed from the perspective of these women, that kind of also would explain why the behavior would be slightly amplified, because that's their view of the men in their life, right? So yeah, it is a little over the top, but I don't know. The only person that stuck out to me as being odd was the truck driver, who
Shooter McGavin was out of place in this film.
It was a bit like he was trying to steal his screen time by being
Yeah, I guess I'll go with you on that. What's that?
He needed to be reined in by Mr. Scott.
Yeah. It's that thing though where like it would have more effect on how like an abusive marriage might look like, because that's really common, and sometimes it does look like a super wild like husband who's just like shitty all the time, but usually it's like more
nuanced.
Yes, thank you. Well, than that. I think that would have been an important relationship, and then you can have the contrast of like the over the top trucker.
Yeah, I guess the thing
who
too,
is
though,
just
is
like.
I guess the thing too is that we didn't have a lot of time to establish the dynamic in that relationship before the girls hit the road, right? So you kind of got to just like paint the picture pretty quickly and then get us going.
Yeah.
Which was kind of that was the only thing. It made a little bit of sense later in the movie, but when Susan Sarandon, or I guess Louise, is so quick to pull the trigger in that parking lot, I was like, okay, that seems like the move of a psychopath. I understand her. The idea is that she had a similar experience with a rapist in Texas, and therefore she has a bit of a trigger with it.
Yeah.
No pun intended. But that was the only other time in the movie where I was like, oh, I get that we're trying to like start like form the inciting incident so we can get this movie going, but a little bit more development or like understanding of who this character is before we just see her fire a random bullet in a parking lot might have been helpful.
Yeah.
It's one of those storytelling choices where it's like like where the movie is about understanding why she made that first choice. So I think there's that's a choice.
It's not a movie that wants to wallow with these characters in particular. It doesn't want to hold them in one place for too long. It wants to show that forward progression that they make from their being trapped in their middle income lives in rural America to being the most free and like liberated they've ever been. And so, not staying on her as the waitress for too long in the beginning. Not staying in the agitated state they are after the murder happens, going as quickly into the like, okay, we got to make a plan where they're evolving that way. I think that's a choice he made, definitely.
Yeah, that makes sense. Should we talk a little bit about Hobbs and Shaw maybe? Because I mean, I don't know.
I mean, I have some. I'm kind of. I want to talk a bit more about Thelma and Louise.
Right.
I still have some thoughts on it, like, because the story in this is really good. It's like I didn't take notes for the first like while, and then I was like, right, I'm supposed to be like taking some notes on this, but I found it quite captivating. I'd never seen this movie before. I'm familiar with the premise, but I was into it, and I didn't break out of it until there was like the first blip in the writing, which for me wasn't really a blip. It's just like sometimes if you're familiar enough with like screenwriting or playwriting, sometimes you start to like see things coming because a screenwriter is going to be like, okay, now they need another obstacle / like another thing to make them more desperate, to incite more action and like this kind of stuff. So like as soon as Brad Pitt came into the bedroom, like Brad Pitt's character comes back to have a romantic encounter with Gina Davis, and I was like, he's gonna steal their money because he has to, because I'm watching a movie. It's not one of those things where it's supposed to be this kind of liberating moment where she gets to have this like sexual. It is, I think, still gets to kind of sleep with this young, the hottest thing to come out of a trailer park, in this skinny Brad Pitt, and then but he reveals that he's kind of on the run himself, and he used to steal things, and you kind of go, he's gonna steal the money. And I just saw that coming in a way that I was like, I
had a similar experience.
Movies.
I had a similar experience early on in the movie. Actually, I had no idea what the film was about, but as soon as I saw the gun, I was like, okay, so one of these women is going to shoot somebody, and then as soon as you see the guy in the bar flirting with Thelma, you're like, oh, so you're
like that guy.
you're about to die. Sorry, buddy. Sorry, you're gonna die. I also love that his opening flirtatious line is, "Hey, you like chili? They got great chili here."
Yeah. Gets all the ladies in that part of
like,
nothing
is sexier than chili.
Mama Harlan sure is spicy with his chili.
No, but I had a similar experience. I thought that there was a lot of really great aspects of this film, but I found it to be pretty predictable. But I was wondering, I didn't know if for the time it was predictable, or if it's just this thing where like we've now seen so many movies, both because of this podcast and otherwise, and we're familiar with story structure because of our backgrounds, that we were just able to kind of pick up on it faster than the average person. Or do you know what I mean? Like, is it?
Yeah.
Are we also at a time now in movies where we've seen the same thing enough that we get it, but for its time, it wouldn't have been as expected.
Well, yeah, I think definitely certainly a lot of like the images that we've seen repeated back to us through all of pop culture are derived. A lot of them are derived from this film because of how scenic it is and how just like
It's
magnificent.
beautiful.
Yeah,
It's beautiful. This movie is stunning.
So I think from a visual perspective, a lot of pop culture that we are immersed in copies this. So seeing this film for the first time, you've kind of seen all these images recycled back at you a bunch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's hard to say because the thing is, why I was so captivated by this movie is actually, even though it was made 30 years ago, I still feel like I've never seen a movie like this.
No.
Well, that was the thing. It felt so contemporary. Nothing about it felt dated, except for the music. The soundtrack felt pretty dated, but otherwise,
every time that happened, I fell right out of the film. Had to.
It's a trope.
Yeah. Luckily, it's acted so well.
That was Zimmer, right? That was Hans
Zimmer.
Yeah.
So funny. I mean, part of me loves that, if I'm going to be honest. Like, there were a couple times that I kind of appreciated that it knew what movie it was, and it was doing it. But other times that I was like, okay, chill it with like that.
But I don't know that it was a self-awareness thing, or if that was just like a cool thing to do because of the time, because it was the early
1990s.
Right.
Yeah,
of course.
Yeah.
So to them, it was groundbreaking and super dope.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But so again, though, I've never seen a movie that is so like about like women's perspective, this kind of thing about them finding like essentially finding their first taste of like a sort of liberation in a man's world by essentially just refusing to be subservient anymore. It's just one of those shitty things where like if in the modern perspective, and I've heard people talk about this, like if you're a hero, if you're a female hero in a movie, it's like you're going to get raped, or that's going to be your inciting action, or like someone has to die, that kind of thing. Like if this were the male version, they would like The Fugitive as like a male comparison with Harrison Ford. It's like he lives and his story is told, and things work out, but because they're women, they have to die, which is I guess an important kind of message about their struggle in this world, I guess.
Yeah.
Funny podcast. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting that you talk about the fact that you've never seen a movie like this, because I was doing some research, and apparently the woman who wrote it, this was her first stab at screenwriting. It was she was just a woman who did a lot of freelance work on music video sets. And she was just fed up with how sexist and misogynistic those environments were. So she put together this script, and it got so much backlash when it first came out because of how poorly it depicts men.
Yeah.
But then it got all the Oscar noms, and it was just like a huge hit afterwards. But the initial reaction was like, "Oh, well, we can't show men like this. This is offensive."
These male police officers don't even care.
I did kind of like that aspect, though. Not the fact that they were making jokes about everything, but I liked the fact that there was a bit of personality to the detectives and kind of like to everybody involved beyond just like
they were all clowns, but yeah,
they were all clowns.
It's like am I supposed to be enjoying your that you're investigating?
Yeah.
Is it supposed to be like a smiley, happy, fun time? I'm having a good time with you. Is that what I'm supposed to be feeling?
Yeah.
Is that what you're supposed to be inciting in me?
Well, and then the movie just kind of glosses over him breaking and entering into a suspect's house to collect evidence.
Yeah.
Oh boy, and then later beating Brad Pitt until he gives him the answer he wants.
He smacked him with a cowboy hat. He didn't beat
Brad
Pitt.
I don't give a shit.
He didn't beat Brad Pitt. The breaking and entering thing is a little problematic.
Oh, it's super. It makes the whole investigation go away.
But he
if that's
was
never
but
found
he
out.
was trying to save them, guys.
He
Yeah.
was.
How about
Yeah.
those delightful downpour on a bright sunny day shot?
Oh man,
Where they had the rain machine shot.
the amount of times that there was just like the most aggressive rain I've ever seen pouring down these scenes.
On the sunniest day you could imagine in the background.
Yeah, that
and
was
it's
so
just like-
weird. The scene in the backyard where like they're all perfectly sunny lit, and then
Yeah.
all around them there's like a circle of rain.
I'm pretty sure that it was the final day of shooting, and they had the rain machine for one day, and they're like, "It's not going to be cloudy. We got to do this. I'm sorry."
But then have it rain on them also. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
When they're sitting in the backyard,
Yeah.
I think the storm is supposed to have passed. I think they're.
It's raining
it's like-
directly behind Daryl in the shot.
And I think it's just coming off of the eaves, like of the house.
Oh, maybe.
Watch again. I'm pretty.
Maybe you're right.
You're not gonna watch it again.
Maybe you're right.
Watch it
pretty
again, Daniel.
I would maybe watch it again.
Yeah, watch it again. Watch
Yeah.
the movie again. I actually would. Yeah. Anyway, well, I also think that's one of those things that like if we were in like California or something, they'd be like, no, that's what weather is like.
Yeah.
You just fucking Canadians
rain.
don't know any better.
Sunny rain.
I gotta give a shout out to some super cool shots in this movie.
Mm.
Especially near the end. I think that's where like the Ridley Scottness of it really picked up, and where he
Yeah.
was like, okay, now I get to like use a helicopter a bunch. The shot, like I was actually like, oh, like I actually had like it elicited a response from me. Is this where like near the end and they're running from all the cruisers and it's on the dusty field, and you see their car first, and like it just kind of pulls out more and it shows all of the cruisers and like the dust behind them, and I was like, that's it, like that's the movie.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like that's.
Yep.
And their use of kind of how they were driving on the edge of a canyon, and it pulls out, and then like they see the helicopter come in and it's inside
That
the
shot
canyon.
was nuts.
That shot
was
was
like,
gorgeous.
But then and I was like, oh my god, awesome shot 1, awesome shot 2, so cool. And then they cut to like them standing at the edge of the canyon, and they're like, wow, like something, they're like taking it in, and then they're surprised by a helicopter, like Ridley
Yeah.
Scott
Woo!
wanted another cool shot, and I was like, again, Ridley, I know you're going for cool shots, but that's not how sound works, and that's not how helicopters work. Like they're not like, oh my god, a helicopter. A helicopter is there. Like it's loud as fuck.
But in the Grand
that's so
Canyon?
funny.
I don't know.
I never ever once thought about that.
Yeah.
I had to watch the ending to this movie twice because I fell asleep near the end last night, but I remember that shot from both viewings, and that never crossed my mind. I was never like, oh, they would hear that for sure. All I was thinking was A, cool shot. B, wasn't this shot in Apocalypse Now? Where have I seen this shot before? Because it definitely wasn't like he wasn't the first one to do that.
No, it's like I feel like it's out there, or it's like we've just all seen the Simpsons episode where they make a parody of Thelma and Louise. Who knows?
Yeah.
Right? Who is it? Who is it in The Simpsons that?
Marge,
It's
I think.
Marge and
Yeah.
just like this random friend. It's not another like major
Right.
Simpsons character.
Right.
Yeah. Then on the other side, there was the incredibly awkward shot where Jimmy and Louise kiss.
And it was just
And-
like a close up of the back of her head
Of their
for
back?
like 45 seconds.
And I was like, this is very weird. And then I noticed the people in the background also looking and being very uncomfortable. And then the waitress comes up and is like, I'm glad he left. We were wondering if we were going to have to put out a fire. And so I was like, okay, so I think that was a choice to make us very uncomfortable so we felt like we were in the cafe. I don't know. Or am I giving that way too much credit?
I think they probably just ran out of time and didn't get the opposite angle for coverage.
Whoopsie.
Yeah, whoops. We're just going to sit on this for a little while.
It definitely seemed like a choice to make us watch them kiss for like 6 solid seconds, though.
Yeah. And it was not a good kiss.
No, it was.
I mean, how
uncomfortable.
could you tell? You couldn't see anyone's face.
They were like half hunched over the table.
Yeah, it was so awkward.
Yeah, I think they're maybe trying to go for some sort of meaning of like, he's trying to make it last as long as he can, and she's
Yeah. They're in love,
they're sort of in love.
we think.
They're in messy love.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have to ask about a scene as well. She gives random hillbilly dude next to a shack all of her jewelry.
Oh, yeah.
Why?
Well, okay, I was wondering this too. A, he gives her his hat, right?
That's what Miranda said too. She was like, well, he gave her his hat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I wasn't sure if that was supposed to be if that was like a symbolic gesture of her shedding the remainder of like her old life in exchange for the new one.
Right,
And
right.
so that was her being like, take all this, all I want is your hat. You know what I mean? Like the hat kind of symbolizes this like next chapter or like the new version of herself, or you know what I mean? Which I'm kind of just formulating now, because when I first watched it, I was like, oh, she just bought his hat off him. But like now it makes more sense to me.
Does it happen after the cafe scene where she's on the phone?
No, it's before that.
Happens before?
It's
okay.
before that. The cafe scene is like the very end of the movie.
Yeah.
Right. Well, this meeting is going to end.
That's true.
It's going to end.
Well, maybe we need a word from our sponsors.
Definitely. Go sponsors!
Yay! These are uncertain times, and you need certainty when protecting your family on the road. At Ford, we're dedicated to making sure you give us your money regardless of your financial circumstances. This pandemic affects us all, and if you're not panic buying a new Mustang right now, what good are you? For real, you're a worthless piece of crap, you know that, right? Maybe by spending $40,000 on a new car, you'll be able to derive some kind of meaning from life. We'll even deliver your car to your driveway, because at Ford, we want you to stay home, stay safe, and give us your money. Hey, dummy, remember when we mentioned your family? Yeah, that was a guilt trip. Dummy. Because here at Ford, we believe if you don't have a new Super Duty F-350, your kids will think you're a loser. And do you really want to worry them with that on top of everything else going on? Don't be a limp snail on the face of the economy. Buy a car. Buy a Ford. We're here for you, you insignificant worm. Ford, founded by a literal Nazi.
Alrighty, welcome back. So we took most of the first break to the first segment, I guess, to talk about Thelma and Louise. It's a pretty, some heavier content in that movie for sure. I would very much like to talk about Hobbs and Shaw. I feel like I have a lot to say. So Dan, you saw this movie before.
Sure did.
Like, what is your feeling of this movie? Like,
yeah, good question.
I kind of love-hate this movie.
Huh.
So,
okay.
Because the first time I watched it, I had a lot of fun. I had very fond memories of it. But upon a second viewing, I was like, oh, there are some there are some problems with this film. But I mean, as a person who chose this film and as a person who was already kind of a fan, I'd love to hear your experiences with the movie. So, Jack, you seem like you have a lot to say, so why don't you go first?
So I did enjoy the movie. It does some things really well. I can tell it's like late in a long series of refining a formula, that they do some stuff really well. Somewhat like, I don't do I love every aspect of how this kind of movie looks? It's like, no, but the look, like, I got to admit, most of the time is like pretty polished. Like, they know, like, we're going for these cool cars and the motorcycles look like this and the helmets are cool. Like, they're making choices all the way through, and like they've really refined something.
Which I just need to add is in no way representative of the Fast and Furious franchise.
Okay, cool, great.
Or like kind of where it is now, but if you were to go back and watch Fast and Furious 1 and then this movie.
Oh, yeah.
I look forward to whatever series we get that has 12 different sequels that we can go through and just...
The only one that comes to mind is A Land Before Time.
That would be fantastic.
I love that. I would love that so much.
Just a whole, like a 3-month series of Land Before Time versus Fast and Furious. I'm ready. I'm ready.
I'm in.
But that's what I mean though. Like, if you watched one, but they refined what that is up until now. Like I feel like I'm watching a very like the choices and the stylistic choices are quite like again refined. So I was able to enjoy some of that stuff. The movie though, like the movie part of it, the part where it's supposed to also be like a story that's told, is like mostly not there. It is also it's the plot of Mission Impossible 2. Like that is.
Oh, is it?
I think like it's like lady takes the virus in her body and she's the new carrier and people want her. That's that movie as well. But
that's a problem.
Yeah, like whoopsies.
Whoops.
A lot of movies have really similar plots. It's okay, but when they had the how do I describe this? The twisted metal sequence of the movie where it was like machine gun cars in amidst the empty nuclear reactor sequence.
I actually loved that sequence.
and they're driving trucks through buildings and whatever. I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like this is the climax of the movie. And then they were like, no, fucking scene change, Samoa. There's 30 minutes left. That wasn't the climax. A little part of me was like, oh, I was ready for it to be over. Like I was ready for it to be done. I didn't need to go to Samoa as well. Like it just felt shoehorned in. It sounded like The Rock was like, I'm only doing this movie if we can go somewhere tropical. So
yeah. And a lot of his like family were other pro wrestlers, right?
Is that what they were?
Like
a rugby team as well or something?
At least a couple of them, yeah.
Yeah. So I had a similar experience to you, Jack, where having no introduction to the series, this being my introduction.
I have no idea what I just said, by the way. I felt pretty incoherent, so I'm glad you feel the same.
I mean, it was incoherent. I had no idea what this movie was supposed to be. So when I sat down and it started playing, and I still could not piece together what it was, what tone it was trying to evoke after 7 or 8 scenes. I tried to find the kernel, and I was like, I think this is an espionage movie. I think this is James Bond. So I latched onto that, and movies like this, like Kingsman and the Secret Service, those movies, they're movies that are so close to James Bond. You have to say, are you a pale copy, or are you trying to like turn these little James Bond cliches on their head and present it to us in a new way? And this movie did that a few times, and I was like, "Oh, the grenade didn't go off. Oh, okay."
I thought that was absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, I thought that was some bullshit.
Yeah, where he just puts the pin back in the grenade, and suddenly the grenade doesn't explode.
Sure, but like it's we're expecting that grenade to explode because we've seen it set up, and then in a James Bond film, he'd like throw the grenade at the last minute and blow up all the bad guys and walk away saying a cool line. And here's Jason Statham, oh fuck, diving for the grenade to pin it back in.
Right.
Interesting twist. But most of this movie was a really like generic, bland copy of Skyfall, and it was fun because of that. But like,
it had the vibe of like like a Judd Apatow or like Kevin Feige.
God, yeah, what
movie.
was that?
Is that Kevin Feige who did like Bridesmaids and like Ghostbusters and stuff? Where it's like, we'll just get these entertaining people and we'll have them just like sling insults at each other. Like, you don't get to have 3 separate scenes where it's like, you know, the first time it's like, haha, they're insulting each other, they're one-upping each other. Okay, haha, it's like, okay, I'll take that. That's funny. Easy, but it works. Second time, I was like, okay, some more, but like, are we growing? And then like end of the movie, they're still doing it. Nothing's changed. Nothing really matters, but weren't they muscly? I don't know. Like it was.
Okay, first of all, they are brothers by the end of the movie, Jack.
Sure, they are.
Just so you know, they're now family,
and they discovered the importance of family. Yeah,
they discovered the importance of family.
They did. They discovered the importance of family. That is the moral of this film.
That is what it is.
I guess. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I had a lot of fun in this movie because it's self-aware enough that that like it knows what it is, and it's not trying to be it's not trying to be too heavy-handed or like too like heavy of an action film. It's you know what I mean.
No.
But I think at times it's almost too self-aware because of the stuff like you're talking about, where it's like witty banter back and forth constantly, and like it's like trying almost too hard to be funny because they know there's like supposed to be a bit of a funny movie. So I don't know.
I think they're like, it seemed like they were gunning hard for a PG-13 rating, and they needed a couple, like 2 more moments of someone making a dick ball joke.
So much ball talk.
Yeah.
So much ball talk.
Yeah.
And like, and I have one line that I wrote down where they're on the plane, and Shaw is talking about how he doesn't want The Rock to impregnate his sister.
That scene! I had to walk out of the room.
So everything about that scene was rough. The just like forced injection of Kevin Hart into that whole scene was really bad too.
No.
But the line. I also have genocide schmenicide written.
Yeah, I also wrote down. I also have genocide schmenicide in here on my notes.
But there's a line where The Rock is like, but if your sister wants to do the horizontal hula sexy time with this with this big brown tattooed mountain of a man, I was like, you
mean the line that he took 30 seconds to deliver?
Yeah.
If she wants to do the horrors, I was like, I get what you're doing already.
Well, I mean, you're just speaking to a larger point or a larger problem that is just The Rock's acting in general.
Yeah, I was so bummed.
I was so ready to be blown because his charisma coming off the start of this film was at 11, and I was eating it all up with a spoon.
Yeah,
and then it just stayed at 11 and continued being 11. And sometimes 11 gets really sore. So
he is an undeniably charismatic dude, and I've seen him on other stuff where it's like he's funny, he's good. He can like improvise funny moments. He's a talented dude. He just does not have like a grounded part of him though. The part near the end where they're getting electrocuted, there was supposed to be like a kind of serious moment, and I was like, oh man, you can't even pretend that you're like
a real person.
Yeah, you're like real or like worried, or you can't pretend there are stakes for us. That's where it's like, oh, you're not really an actor, and you can't do this for us, for the audience. Like, we need to have stakes to care.
Yeah, every time there was even a remotely serious moment, The Rock just kind of fell apart. But I also felt like he didn't. Like, he's just literally a mountain of a man, and he should just be able to stand there and say words and be intimidating and like fit that badass guy persona. But it felt somehow forced with him. Like he's supposed to be. You're right. He's a really charismatic dude, but maybe it was his character. I mean, it's weird too because the character in this movie is essentially just The Rock. Like
he's often just The Rock. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, fine, but like. They were clearly really trying to lean into like he gets up in the morning and eats like a carton of eggs and then works out for a long time and then eats like a stack of flapjacks, you know what I mean? And then goes to Samoa. Like it's clearly just The Rock.
Right.
But for some reason, like nothing that he says feels like funny or charming or anything. Maybe go ahead, Sean.
I was gonna say, replay the whole movie in your mind, but instead of having Jason Statham and Dwayne Johnson in the lead roles, picture Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly, and this movie becomes way better.
Well, see, the thing is that, first of all, yes, but if you had just taken The Rock out and left Jason Statham there, and put another just like big, even like Dave Bautista or like another like big muscle bound dude in front of him, who actually had
Bautista
some acting chops.
Great. Yeah.
Bautista is amazing.
Yeah, he's like actually like a really incredible actor. But I think it was tough to put The Rock up against Jason Statham because not only is Jason Statham a really sick action star and handles fight choreo really well and is like actually talented there, but he's also a charming, funny, just like naturally charismatic person. So all of his insults landed like 100% of the time, and his dialogue was great. And then The Rock started talking, and you're like, oh, are you still like just doing your professional wrestler thing? I'm not really sure. I thought we were in a movie now.
He did the
Or he's like,
I flex this
flexing,
muscle.
yeah.
Points to his head, and then
And the eyebrow
I-
thing where he was denying
groaned.
the eyebrow.
When he tried to say Nietzsche and flex his bicep, I groaned. I was like, no. Like
Also,
it was
maybe not the
charming.
philosopher to quote.
Yeah. It was just it. Yeah.
wait, why?
I
I
don't
don't
know.
get it.
Nietzsche, Nazis love him. Yeah.
Oh, great. Okay,
Yeah.
that's good.
Nailed it.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah. I also like when comparing this. So I watched this movie first. Didn't really make a difference though. Again, if we talk about like the kinds of empowerment that exist in Thelma and Louise, this movie, on the other hand, it's like so. Shaw's sister is like this really tough MI6 agent, manages to get away from Idris by being crafty and really good, but still wearing like mascara to her MI6 mission. There's like little things like that I'm like, well, she has to be sexy. They let her get like a bit more like worn down later in the movie, but it's like, hey, we need you to like be invested in this woman. Cut to later on though, and there's like this random side part where they meet up with someone that Shaw knows, and they're like an all lady gang, and they're supposed to be like, you know, it's like yeah, these are the badass women. They like steal from people. Meanwhile, they're all dressed in like lingerie, and it's just like an NRA commercial where it's like women like fucking busty women
Just like
in
whipping
lingerie,
guys hanging
like
from the ceiling.
like handing guns, being like, and it's like naming and describing guns. And so I don't find guns in cars like, oh yeah, like oh sweet. So it doesn't do it for me. So it just reads as something really weird.
Especially when
it's not a script. It's just like random. Like he knows what the gun is probably.
Especially when a lot of the car stuff was incoherent and you couldn't piece where the car was on the road compared to the bad guys. And yeah.
I mean, while we're on the topic of cars, I do want to talk about maybe the greatest scene in cinema history, which is when the Rock's brothers are able to literally chain together 10 cars in a row, one by one as they're driving.
To weigh down a military grade
helicopter. And then, which is also being held to the Rock's car by a chain. But then the chain breaks, and the Rock, while still holding on to the car with one hand, holds on to the helicopter with the other hand, and is able to pull it far enough to reconnect it to the car. Everything about that scene was absolutely magical. I thought it was perfect. And I also love that they have that scene where they turn the corner and almost fall off the cliff, which like in reality, they're all dead. They're all going off that cliff. Yeah. And then they all hit their nos at the same time. And mind you, they're all connected together. Yeah. They're not just like driving close together. They're like connected by hooks and chains. And then they all hit their nos, and the very next cut, all the cars are separated and spread all over the road.
I didn't pick up on that.
I thought it was masterful. I thought it was so perfect.
Oh. Well, these action scenes fall into the so ridiculous that it's actually kind of fascinating to watch category.
Yeah. Well, yeah, as soon as you kind of just accept what you're watching and you know that it's all absurd and kind of supposed to be, it becomes way more fun. And but some of the fight scenes, for example, are awesome in this film.
Yeah.
Jack, the fight choreographer, is like, well, I don't think so. I don't know.
Look, if I
want to see wider shots.
Well, yes, always.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I expected more from these filmmakers and from these performers. If I'm being honest, I expected at least some like a bit more coherent stuff. I didn't love the slightly sped up style. And I don't know. I wasn't totally blown with the action.
What do you mean the slightly sped up style?
That they wouldn't speed up people's movements, but they would cut out like the time between movements happening. So instead of reading like a punch you and a punch you and a kick you, it's like punch punch kick, because they cut out the time between. And so
I love that shit. I love that.
It's the same.
My heart racing.
Yeah, I know. And look, it can be fun. I'm not saying it wasn't bad either. Just I did expect more from these movies for being what they were, and because I know Statham can do it, and I know The Rock fucking was a professional wrestler for a while. Like I expected more from it, because I've seen stuff like Statham do in The Transporter. I know those were like fucking 15 years ago, but
yeah,
or more, but still.
Well, since we're on the topic of the speed of punches, can we talk about the very end of this movie when every single punch that they throw is played at like a snail's pace? It's all slowed right down. And the secret to defeating this like superhuman cyborg of a man is just, I'll take a punch so you can punch him.
Daniel, it's teamwork.
Yeah.
Suck a dick,
That's
Sean.
That's the bonding. I think that's family, technically.
Yeah, family. It all goes back to the moral of the story.
Okay,
we
guys,
have to punch as a family.
But can we just talk about the fact that in every other instance, this guy is like taking bullets and like surviving buildings falling on him, and suddenly because he's caught off guard, he is like knocked out by a punch from Jason Statham?
Yeah. So Dan, like this is for me a note similar to what you said about the cars, where you have to accept what's happening. Because I have a note that I was just like, oh, so physics don't exist. I was like, once you get over physics, then this movie's pretty fun. Like, so Idris Elba, like he pulls, like he doesn't he like break a gun in half, like he does stuff like that, and he punches through concrete.
He
stops bullets with his bulletproof armor and whatever. And then somehow like Statham and Johnson take like multiple punches from him in the face and on the jaw. And it's not like, oh, shake it off. It's like, you're dead. You're super dead. I'm okay if we want to go over the top. I would love just like a touch of consistency. Like that they're maybe trying to avoid being hit by him or something like that. Like more do a funny scene running around the helicopter wreckage trying to let him not punch you because he can punch through walls. Like, that
or show them with horribly disfigured jaws after.
Yeah. Like they have like swollen, like like they have goiters, like they're so. But instead they're like, we're gonna have to, like, you can't talk anymore. Anyway,
I have a secret theory that this movie is actually a discarded Star Wars script.
What? How did you get there?
Not
every movie is Star Wars, Sean.
I have very few clues, but they're follow me in this adventure, okay?
All right.
Okay, so our
Sean's solo podcast, every movie is Star Wars. Okay, go ahead.
I do it. Okay, so
here's how Schindler's List is Star Wars. Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
Right off the top, Luke Hobbs. Luke? Come on.
Oh, okay. Get fucked. Okay,
Hold on.
What else
Luke's main antagonist is a biometrically designed super soldier who wears a completely black suit with a helmet and can stop bullets with his hand and speaks to his like master through some like manipulative voice digital hologram thing.
Okay, now he's making some points.
Yeah, okay. I know.
Deckard Shaw, his sidekick, Harrison Ford's character's name in Blade Runner is Deckard. He's Han Solo, so Deckard Shaw is Han Solo.
That one's a little looser.
Yeah, that one's a bit...
You had me for a second.
I stayed up till 5 a.m. following the by the way, that voiceover of like the secret boss was like a laughable, like generic. That was one of those like movie moments. Oh, is it really?
No. Yeah. Was it actually?
Yeah, because he's not going to be whatever that character is, but like,
he did the voice.
Yeah, the director was like, "You want to do this thing?" He was like, "Okay."
Okay, because like what my example of like the laughable film moment was like that voice. I was like, no, come on. And then in Thelma and Louise, when there was the phone tapping scene, and fucking Shooter McGavin snaps at them when the phone comes in, and I was like, no, No. You don't get to pull that like stereotypical movie shit here. No. I also, because there's like little things that I noticed. I will say this though. So Gina Davis is definitely like the rock of their relationship. They're two of the most eye-catching people that I like ever seen. They're both super tall and like they're huge. Like Gina Davis, you see it multiple times. She seems so tall.
She's very tall. Yeah.
Part of that is how they shot the movie, though. A lot of those shots of her where you see her height is she's at like a slightly low angle to make her look a bit more imposing. But she is super tall.
She's really tall.
She's like
something. Yeah.
They even say they list her height in the movie as 5'10".
Oh wow.
Which is not super tall, but she seems taller. And then The Rock is just like it's one of those things, like they're not, I wouldn't say they're both like, oh my God, like these people are so beautiful, but it's like they're so eye-catching. Like you can't not look at them and be like, oh my God. And so The Rock has his fucking promo shot at the end of the movie where he just like walks out in slow motion, and it's incredible. It's
incredible, but so ridiculous because that means that he had that scene with his brother like 2 seconds before, and then went and got changed for the big fight because he's like wearing pants and a vest when he talks to his brother, and then the next shot he's coming out from the house with like his robe, or I don't know what you would call it, but a no shirt. And the muscles.
But then he takes the time to put a t-shirt back on for the car chase.
And pants.
He like specifically puts that stuff back on. Can we talk about? So we had a thing in when we talked about Olympus Has Fallen. We talked about the ridiculous of like plans and stuff. The Home Alone self-defense plans, the barricade, the fortifications in Samoa, are some of the most ridiculous things. Also, apparently they do this in less than 24 hours, right?
Well, that's what I want to talk about, because midway through the movie, they find a scientist. They find the scientist, the architect of this virus, who tells them basically that they have 42 hours before the virus is released into this woman's system.
72.
Did you say 72? Are you sure it wasn't 42? Okay.
72.
Either way. So A, I need to get my hearing checked. B,
I thought I heard 42 as well.
Yeah,
Anyway,
yeah. So maybe you're wrong, Jack. Maybe
I got 42.
Maybe you're wrong.
42 is too random for these screenwriters. For sure, they said 72.
I'm going to look it up. Either way, whether it's 2 days or 3 days, we're at the midway point in the movie. Then they get caught and have an entire scene where they're getting electrocuted and have to like break out of was it Brixton? Brixton was the name of
Brixton. Of Idris.
Of Idris?
Yeah.
Who is a god, by the way. Idris Elba.
He's fantastic.
Oh, just
so cool.
Like actually so cool. Just like
so
oozing cool.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
When he turns on his like actual Cockney accent in like interviews and stuff. Oh,
swoon.
Well, and he just seems. What I love about Idris Elba is that he plays such a badass in most of his roles, but he seems like such a sweet guy in real life.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's like my male actor crush. Anyways, so they get caught. Then they have their escape plan. Then they fly to Samoa. Mm-hmm. Then they basically refashion the entire island. And also his mechanic brother basically cracks the code to fixing this very specific and unique machine that is going to remove the virus from this girl's body.
Yeah, one of a kind machine. But he fixes cars, Dan.
Yeah. He has a lot of spare parts.
And he has a 3D printer. It makes complete sense.
Yeah.
But that timeline, and I'm pretty sure it's 42 hours, but even at 72 hours, that makes zero fucking sense.
Yeah, they also you also forget that the breakout scene happens in the Ukraine, which they also had to get to from they were in London? Yeah, so they got London to Ukraine, then to Samoa, then fortify Samoa. Also, 3D printing takes like a long time. It's not like a half-hour event.
Also, understanding the science of this brand new machine that no one's ever seen before.
Yeah, but no one's here for the science. My favorite part of their plan, though, is first of all, really trusting that Shaw's sister, what is her name again?
Hattie.
That Hattie can use one of the guards' gloves that she has to break into the gun system and turn off all their guns. They're really banking on that working. Because they're all just going out there with clubs and stuff. They do a haka, which is super cool, but whatever.
And completely pointless.
Completely pointless, but I love me a haka. And then they set up this, you mentioned like the propane tanks, like the barrels of gasoline or something.
And they were like fireworks.
That they set they put them in the ground in a road. They're like, this will be our I don't know what this will be, I thought it was gonna be where they come through first or something.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was.
I think it was literally their alarm system. I think it was like literally because but it's the stuff that they end up blowing up the helicopter with. But that road where they dug all those barrels, based on how fast they were driving during like the car chase helicopter that you were talking about chain sequence, they drove for minutes really fast. So like arguably that certain place that they dug those barrels was like miles away from where they had their like final fight, which that's some next level planning. Also complete bullshit.
There were like 19 brothers there, right? So
yeah, were they all supposed to be brothers?
I think they're all like brothers or cousins or I don't know. Yeah, I mean the whole thing was just horse shit. I mean, I also love the fact that not only does his main brother fix this machine, but also makes it portable. He turns it into a backpack and durable enough to survive a helicopter crash.
Oh, Daniel, the number of times I screamed, why is she in the front lines at the TV? There's no reason except they wrote a female character that actually can hold her own. So they're like, we have to make sure she's in the final scene.
Yeah.
And wrote a reason for her to be completely combat ineffective by strapping this virus machine to her back. So it was the most infuriating.
The last act of this movie is absolutely terrible, is kind of what I'm going to say. It was pretty fun. That's why I said, like, I felt like the climax was in Ukraine. It felt like the climax. And then they had this whole extra sequence in Samoa. Every second of it was terrible. A bunch of it was clearly in front of green screens, which was weird. I was like, they must have they maybe did reshoots or something. Like, I didn't like any bit of that last climax. Sure, the cars chinning together was funny, but at that point I was like, okay, so.
Well, it was funny because it wasn't meant to be funny, I don't think. But I also, because you brought up green screens, I also just want to quickly pivot back to Thelma and Louise, because the one thing that got me was the fact that we'd cut from like these beautiful sweeping shots of like the canyons and these like big roads and landscapes, and cut to like them just like bouncing in a car in front of a green screen with the road behind them. Did you guys catch that? All this.
Oh yeah.
And is that the one where she's supposed to be swerving back and forth on the road, but her hands aren't moving on the wheel?
Yeah. That is the one. I remember that too.
Oh, it was gold.
But Hobbs and Shaw, now the driving there, top notch.
Is that sarcasm or?
Yes.
Oh.
It was like, it just like wasn't grounded in anything for me to connect to. I just like.
It was boring.
It ends up being boring, yeah, because it's like, if everything is up here, like my hand is up by my head for people listening, up here, then like it's eventually it's like, why do I? It becomes dull eventually.
Mm-hmm. And especially the first like car chase scene was through the streets of London, which instead of like closing, I guess they had a closed set, but instead of like limiting the traffic and having these nice wide shots of cars like zooming in and out, they packed the streets to make it look like London during rush hour, and the chase was like in a straight line, and if it was ever happening, and you could never see some of the cars together at the same time because there were too many cars on the road. It was a mess.
But like, how cool was Idris Elba's motorcycle?
I hated it.
His Transformer?
His stupid Batman bike.
Honestly, I rolled my eyes more than I thought it was cool.
Oh, I loved it. It felt like it was right out of G.I. Joe, and it made me smile every time I watched it.
No, it looked
every
like
time he slid under a new vehicle and the whole thing just like contorted back into shape. I loved it so much.
like
Was it
yeah,
biometrically linked to him or something? Was it magnetized to his Teflon?
yeah, it's supposed to be like
Oh,
in
maybe,
sync
I
with
don't know.
his instincts. I think they made something about it. It just seemed like Michael Bay snuck in and
Yeah.
was like, "Hey, I could do a Transformers bit."
This is the same director as Deadpool and Deadpool 2.
Oh,
Is
it is.
Is it really?
Yes.
Oh, so that's why Ryan Reynolds is there.
Yes.
That's rough. He was fun, but it was too much of exactly Deadpool.
Yeah.
But I mean, have you ever seen a Ryan Reynolds movie? Because that's
is
what
just Ryan
that is
Reynolds.
just what he does in every film. I've never seen a
Yeah.
film where he doesn't do that, except for Blade Trinity, where he like
Oh,
also
it's
was
pretty
muscular. Yeah,
He's also pretty Deadpool-y there. I saw a rom-com with him and oh my god, blank on the name, Sandra Bullock. That
borderline.
was
I'm
a
sorry.
bit. I know
What?
it was okay. It was The Proposal, I think it was called.
Yeah.
It was actually not bad if I remember correctly. But because Deadpool is him turned up to like 25, and so it was still just in that range that it's like, oh, you're doing Deadpool.
I thought
Which-
it was great.
Which is super enjoyable. I don't know what to tell you.
Well, and it's nice because again, The Rock needs all the fucking help that he can get in this movie.
The hardest working actor in Hollywood?
I mean,
Fuck.
yeah, but like, so it like without someone like Ryan Reynolds doing his thing or Jason Statham doing his thing,
Nathan.
the Rock just fucking kills the moment. Like he needs the support. So I don't know. I thought that Ryan Reynolds was hilarious. His whole Beckham moment and his whole bit at the end where he was it a post-credit sequence where he talks
Yeah. Oh,
No, the final phone call where he's on the phone with he thinks he's talking to The Rock, but it's actually his daughter, and his whole bit where he's like, "You guys sound exactly alike. It's uncanny," or whatever the dialogue was.
Right.
Yeah. I thought it was all hilarious. I thought it was great.
Well, he's a funny guy. Like he can do that. Like whereas again, as you talk about the other kind of what seemed like sort of improvised stuff in this movie wasn't as good.
Yeah.
But almost still better though than some of the scripted moments of being like, well, he's the world's best tracker. I was like, what?
I don't even.
Who's that? Like the Rock's character is described by someone who's like, well, yeah, he can do it. He's the world's best tracker.
The Rock's character is described as the world's best tracker.
Yeah.
Oh, I missed that entirely.
That's why he finds her so quickly. We don't know how he's good or see how he's good, but someone else says that he is. So we can just cut to him finding her.
Right.
It's the tell, don't show school of filmmaking.
Ah, gotcha.
Yeah.
Well,
It's just like it's a weak sauce script. I also laughed at the very end when they have defeated the bad guy or whatever, but their guns, the bad guy's guns, have all come back online. But all of the Samoan people are just like shaking their crowbars and yelling, and then the people with guns surrender.
Well, there's way more Samoans than there are
Oh, right.
guards, and
Right.
And what I love is that they have the big final fight scene on the cliff there, and it's pouring rain. It's actually like a thunderstorm. And then they cut to them just like walking away from Brixton on the ground, and it's like the sunniest day of the year.
it's thematic, okay?
God.
I'm surprised that this is the same director as Deadpool.
Oh, I'm not.
I mean, it seems like it may have been a situation where it was the same director, but the studio is maybe a little more involved in this one. You know
Yeah,
what I
because
mean?
they're
Yeah.
setting something up for their own side stuff, so they don't have to hang around Vin all the time.
Yeah.
That's true, because The Rock and Vin Diesel hate each other in real life, right?
I do they? That's
They do, yeah.
not shocking.
Yeah, when
Yeah,
they shot
apparently, yeah.
when they shot Fast and Furious 7 or 8, they like refused to shoot scenes together. They just wouldn't do it.
And they were like not even the same set ever again. Like that. Yeah, that's why this movie exists. Yeah, is what I've heard.
I can't wait till we do Triple X. Oh boy.
Oh,
I'm okay to never do triple X unless we put it up against like a really famous porno. Then it'd be funny.
Ooh, yeah. Or Super Bowl 30.
Oh yeah.
Super Bowl 30 versus Triple X. Like,
Well, we got a little bit of time left for any final thoughts on these two movies.
I mean, I still have a bunch of critiques, man, but I don't know if any of them are worth really.
Oh, it's all worth it. I say we come
Okay.
back and
I gotta give one shout out to a moment that was actually awesome. That did seem like the director from Deadpool doing a good job again. That I laughed out loud a bunch, which was the eye scanning moment.
Yeah, that was good.
Where they've each gone through a different room for arbitrary reasons, and the Rock beat up one guy, but Statham beat up like 12 dudes, and then they each have to scan one of their eyes to get out of the room, and Statham keeps trying different faces, and it's these shots of different men. I thought that was fucking
that was another
great.
That was a great moment of setting up a James Bondy kind of thing where you have to fight your way through the bad guys, but in James Bond, he'd just pick up the guy and boop, boop, and the door would open and he'd be fine. So
totally.
Let's send it over to the sponsors.
Hey, just taking a break from our derpy homemade commercials to say if you've been listening to this podcast, thanks so much. And please do share with your friends. Feel free to leave a comment. Any ideas of matchings of movies that you have, we want to hear them. Share it with your friends. If you like it, share it with your enemies. If you don't, give us a like, subscribe. We got a YouTube channel. Yeah, thanks for listening.
And welcome back. So we've gone through these movies in pretty random detail, as we often like to do. But now we get down to the final test, the real comparison of these two movies. So we're now going to look at them through 5 different categories, which are looks, sounds, acting, story, and rewatchability. So rewatchability is also something that like we kind of sometimes it's like it's a kind of enjoyability, but rewatchability is a good way to think about it.
Which of these two movies do you want shown on your deathbed if you only have these two movies?
Yeah, like if you had to, which one would you screen?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Wait, is that if you're on your deathbed, what's the last movie you want to watch, or what's the movie you want playing as you die for the people in the room?
Yes,
okay.
that.
Okay.
So they're not looking at me; they're looking at.
And so essentially we have 5 categories, so there should never be a tie. Whatever movie wins 3 out of 5 categories is declared the Citizen Kane of the week.
Rosebud.
Rosebud. Let's the Rosebud of the week. So let's different meaning. Don't look it up. Don't Google Rosebud. So
or do.
So these actually first 2 categories can be kind of tricky, especially when we compare these kind of more classic movies, these older movies, to modern stuff. And they're usually the hardest, I've found. And for looks, I've kind of talked, like, they both have strengths. Like I mentioned, like the polish of Hobbs and Shaw is satisfying. Like the CGI is mostly effective. You know, it's well done. It's pretty high quality CGI, obviously. And the design of a lot of it looks sleek. It looks cool. Like it's doing its thing. But then there are just like the power of some of the cinematography of Thelma and Louise is also like so good, especially when we get into the late stage of the movie. The earlier parts are kind of generic and a bit kind of neither here nor there. But some of it is really great. It wasn't an easy choice. How do you guys feel about it?
I'm split across my first 2 of these 2 categories. One, I put one in one and one in the other.
Yeah.
For me, for the looks, I'll agree. I really liked the design style of Hobbs and Shaw, and I loved the color palette. This is like the douchiest thing I've ever said. I love the color palette of the film. I love all the things they chose to pop, the colors they chose to pop in scenes, and the colors that they didn't have in scenes. It made a really cool film. I just wish the camera was pointed at things that were interesting.
Yeah.
And Thelma and Louise, there's some weird shots, but there's also like I'm never going to forget these shots, and I will probably forget Hobbs and Shaw when I watch the next James Bond film.
Right.
So I'm giving my looks point to Thelma and Louise.
Ooh, shit.
Ooh.
One thing I want to say though about because it's kind of an actiony point, but also it's like cinematography. It's like use of cinematography to be entertaining, and that was actually for me in the earlier parts of Hobbs and Shaw when it before all the Samoa bullshit, and whatever. Right near the beginning, the first parallel sequence of Hobbs and Shaw is really, really good. It's funny. It's storytelling through action. You know, like and like using action like to be the humor, to be the story of like them having similar things happen in the action side by side, and like using the cuts and the edits. And I was like, oh, like that's what I was expecting the whole movie to be more like. I was like, they've really gotten good at this. This is funny. This is like using the camera work. And then it just falls apart. Whereas as Thelma and Louise starts a bit more, as you mentioned, like more, you know, ho-hum, as Sean so aptly said, but then it ramps up into something special. My point is also for Thelma and Louise.
Wow.
At the moment, unless Dan makes some crazy vote here.
Uses his 2-for-1.
Use my 2-for-1, my veto vote. No, I mean, I think that I was expecting before these movies started to just easily give the point to Hobbs and Shaw.
Me too.
Yeah, but I couldn't overlook how well Thelma and Louise was shot. I mean, there's some stuff in there that holds up against movies today. No problem. And I mean, talk about color palette. The color palette in that film is gorgeous.
Yeah.
And it's gritty and unlike Hobbs and Shaw, the camera is always helping to tell the story. The camera work, the cinematography, their use of handheld versus like smooth cinematic shots. It's all gorgeous. Hobbs and Shaw looks nice. Looks nice, pardon me. But I mean, it's like designer. Well, it's trending. You know, it's trendy.
Yeah.
It's not a beautiful, unique film. It's just utilizing cinematic trends of today really well.
I felt like the whole movie would have looked really nice in one of those boutique furniture stores downtown.
Yeah, it's like they lit really fancy, beautiful cars and shot them with a nice camera at times, and you're like, wow, those are really well lit cars.
Yeah. So I mean, surprisingly, I think that my vote also has to go to Thelma and Louise.
All right.
And I also want to give a shout out to like their use of like landscape, and like just like the backdrop of the American like South and stuff in this movie. That like where I really by the end of the movie I felt like the land like and those backdrops and the landscapes were like a character of the movie. Like they were important, and it made me want to drive across the United States. Like I feel like for all these Americans who have done those kinds of drives, and they probably could they're crossing over into like they probably recognize some of the geography and stuff, like they would be with them on that journey. The same way if we saw a movie where they came out of in Canada, if they came out of the forests of Ontario and into the prairies, we would be like, oh shit. And if they hit the Rockies, we'd be like, oh man, like we would be with them on that journey. Like it would be such an important part of that. It's beautiful. It really was. Funny
story. The route they take in that movie is entirely fictional.
Yeah.
Damn.
And
you can take the bus tour, I'm sure.
And none of it is shot on location, and none of it is shot in the state they're supposed to be. So anybody who knows the country well would be like, where the fuck are they?
Like,
Jack, you really want to go to Utah, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
You want to go to California, as with every movie that you've seen. Shit.
Yeah, but it's true. I mean, it's a good point though, because I felt the same way about the car in Thelma and Louise.
Yeah.
And by the end of it, I felt like the car was a pivotal character in the story.
Yeah.
So roomy.
What's that? It was
So
so
roomy.
so roomy, that
But
Thunderbird.
it gets messy like they do.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know, like there's just so much cool stuff.
Well, and they drive it like they're fucking animals. I don't know if you
Yeah.
ever like that one shot where they do
They're
that
bad
crazy
drivers.
reverse shot to the gas station.
Yeah.
Which I love. I don't know if you guys caught this, but they speed up in reverse to just like screech to a halt in front of this gas station. And as they're getting out in the background, there's just like
The dude- The
one
Rock?
dude in spandex just like curling
Yeah.
weights for some
Yeah, I
reason.
made a note of him.
Yeah, the Rock in the background
Yeah.
doing.
But that was a cool aspect of this film, was that there were so many shots of just interesting looking people
Mhm.
in Thelma and Louise.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it seemed like it was just for the sake of like having this cool looking person or not cool, but like interesting looking person in the movie. But
Daniel.
Yep,
Hobbs and Shaw had a lot of beautiful people in it.
Pretty people.
So
that's true. Pretty people are people too.
yeah.
How old is Shaw supposed to be compared to his sister?
Oh,
Speaking of.
not their real age gap.
Yeah, they're supposed to be like
Like
pretty
a few years
close.
apart, right?
Yeah, but in reality, it's like he's like twice her age.
Yeah, they cast a 30-year-old and he's like 51 or something.
And he he looks amazing for 50
looks-
something,
He looks amazing, no question about it.
but definitely old.
Yeah, but meanwhile they're kids and they're like 13 and 9 tops.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's get away from looks and go to sounds, shall
So
we?
sounds.
Oh, I had such a hard time with this one.
Yeah.
Mainly because I hated both.
Oh, wow.
I have to say, both bothered me.
You say that for every film so far, for sound in particular, I think.
No, maybe, maybe.
I'll
But
check the tapes.
I couldn't get behind all the weird 90s like synth music. In Thelma and Louise, I thought that Hobbs and Shaw started really promising with their opening
Yeah.
sequence.
And like the weird choices of like opening credit music and stuff. That was like,
Yeah.
oh, okay,
I thought it was really interesting, but then it very quickly devolved into just like pandery,
yeah,
like popular music, and it didn't, and sometimes it didn't even fit. But even when it did fit, it was overly loud and annoying, and it didn't like help add to the movie. I don't know. It felt cheap. It felt cheap. So that is not to say that I know which one I want to vote for yet. I haven't actually given it much thought. I'm on the fence.
Not like we were doing a podcast.
What's that?
Not like we were going to do a podcast.
Well,
Yeah,
first of
whatever.
all, I finished watching this movie like an hour before we got here, and I don't know. I don't like having a predetermined score. I like to kind of see how the podcast unfolds, and then kind of, I like to keep an open
Yeah.
mind. Let
Yeah.
your opinions influence
yeah.
me.
Dan's the malleable one.
He's a weak person.
God.
Spineless is the word you want to use.
Yeah, because Thelma and Louise, like part of me, like you talk about like that you love to hate kind of thing.
Mhm.
I kind of love to hate those lonesome guitar riffs. I like the wow 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 wow.
Echo,
Like,
lots of reverb.
yeah, that's something that I'm like, oh, it's so trashy. I love it. Like, but also that's kind of the only thing I can remember but the sound of the movie. Whereas like Hobbs and Shaw had some bumping music, worked in well with some action scenes and stuff. It had like some interesting sound design, like to create tech sounds and stuff, like the sounds of the motorcycles and stuff. Like that's all really like intricate stuff. Like it has a more diverse sound profile, is how I think about it. Whereas Thelma and Louise is just a movie that has sound. Is kind of where I sit. So my vote for this one is Hobbs and Shaw. I just think it has. It offers more. If I'm being honest, I think it offers more. That's how I put it.
Yeah.
And this is why I wait to give my opinion on movies, because that was influential as fuck, Jack.
Well, yeah.
Well, Daniel, I'm going to make you go next because I always go like first or second. And now you go.
All right.
I just influenced the shit out of him.
Yeah. That was well put. That was very well put. And I think that I think you won me over. I think you won me over with that. I think I'm going to give my point to Hobbs and Shaw as well, because even if I didn't love the music, there was a lot more to listen to, and the sound effects were cool, and the levels were right.
Yep.
And yeah, that was easy. I'm gonna go with
First-
Hobbs and Shaw gets my vote.
This is the first week also where both movies we've watched haven't had problems with their levels.
Yeah, well, in explaining my point, I will say that the music in Thelma and Louise was very distracting. I kept getting pulled out, as I said, and the only cool thing that I really liked sound-wise was when they're firing the guns in the desert and they're putting the cop into the trunk, and the gunshots are echoing through the canyon and continuing on, and that just I never heard that kind of reverb in a gunshot scene before, so it was very interesting. But
I just want to. We didn't touch on this at all during the like synopsis portion of our podcast, but I just want to talk about the fact that like pretty much the only black person we see in Thelma and Louise through the whole movie is
so great.
Is just like a random biker who has to be smoking weed and listening to like reggae music and decides to get the cop stoned in the trunk by blowing weed smoke into the bullet holes.
Yeah, a long distance cyclist rolls up on this cop who's been
smoking
put into the trunk
joint.
And just decides to blow weed smoke into the holes that they put in the trunk for the cop. It's pretty awesome.
It was awesome. I didn't hate it, but I thought I was like, it's a little heavy-handed.
It's one of those things that was a little out of place, but it paid off for the like confusion it created.
Yeah.
So whereas Hobbs and Shaw, I pretty much agree with all of the points you've made on it too. I think we're in common mind on this category. But yeah, Jack, I did not have to touch the volume in Hobbs and Shaw, and boy, do I love it for that. So point Hobbs and Shaw.
Hobbs and Shaw.
I just want to say that I am overjoyed at how much you guys didn't hate this movie.
Yeah.
I'm a little disappointed. I kind of wanted you to come in like kicking and screaming and like ruining the day that you met me. But
I'm trying not to become the pessimist of the group.
Just give in to the hate, Sean. My podcast is Sean is a Star Wars movie. Okay, anyway.
So that's 1-1. That's 1-1 for the record.
1-1. Let's break the tie with a really tough choice right now in the acting story. So my point goes to Thelma and Louise.
Thelma and Louise.
Okay, well I guess it's Thelma and Louise then.
Yeah, come on. I don't know what we're gonna say.
Hey,
do you have an argument?
Hobbs and Shaw has a very charismatic Jason Statham. It has Helen Mirren at her best. It has Idris Elba doing some dope shit.
I wouldn't call it Helen Mirren at her best. I would call it Helen Mirren doing very good.
It has Helen Mirren in a career-defining role.
A new face none of us have ever seen before. This Helen Mirren is going places.
She might play the Queen one day.
Oh.
Sure, yes. Thelma and Louise, but I mean, whatever.
Kevin Hart. Where's his...
I'm so over Kevin Hart.
Yeah,
I'm so over Kevin Hart doing his stupid small guy with a big guy complex.
You know what though? If I have to admit it, I'm not quite over it yet.
Oh.
I still whenever I see him, I'm still kind of happy to see Kevin Hart when I see him. I'm still there. I admit it.
Okay.
Okay. Well, we could have another podcast dedicated entirely to Kevin Hart, and it'll just be me trying to change your mind.
Okay. And Sean makes a podcast convincing everyone that podcast is about Star Wars. Okay.
Yeah, that Kevin Hart is Star Wars.
Yeah.
Kevin Hart is Star Wars, okay?
Okay, so sorry, that's 2-1. I think that's a quick one.
Damn it!
I don't want to waste.
Because I know I know this is going. I know the next one is story. So
yeah,
we obviously know where this is going to end up.
We're still ironing out our picks.
Man,
God damn
it's early in the podcast.
Well, let's talk about rewatchability first.
Okay.
Because I'm curious about this category first.
Hobbs and Shaw, all the way, every day. Hobbs and Shaw. If I had to choose, I would rewatch both of these movies, but I would rewatch Hobbs and Shaw 10 times more than I'd rewatch Thelma and Louise, only because it's easier to watch. Thelma and Louise is actually a brilliant film. I loved it, but it's heavy and it's long.
You're fighting so hard right now. You're like,
Yeah.
I see. You're like,
It's the best movie of the two, but you know what? I just
No, but if we're talking about which movie I would rewatch of the two, if I had to choose, I would go with Hobbs and Shaw because I'm seldom in the mood for something that is as weighted as Thelma and Louise. I can always throw on a movie like Hobbs and Shaw.
yeah, it's easier as like a something to watch on a plane that you can like pass out to.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I like Thelma and Louise is a movie that was like influential for me.
Yeah, I felt things watching this film, and I forgot what that felt like to have film move me like that.
Yeah,
So-
I had a genuinely wonderful like movie experience watching Thelma and Louise.
Well, I just want to say you're welcome to both of
Yeah,
you.
actually,
yeah,
yeah,
thank
man.
you. Yo, I'm
This
so
was-
glad. It was such a great movie to finally see. It really is a classic, great movie.
So I take it Story is also going to Thelma and Louise.
Yeah, I think that's
Well-
like a pretty fair, a pretty almost clean sweep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just about a
Almost.
sweep. So that's 4-1. So not as much competition as we sometimes get, but we kind of, I think if you watch these at home in anticipation for this week's podcast, which I'm sure you did, you maybe would understand why Thelma and Louise is a 4-1 winner and is our Citizen Kane of the week.
Ding, ding, ding.
Ding, 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 ding.
Oh, yeah. Like clap.
I'm still debating if I should throw in a clap track for this or if we should just clap. I kind of like us clapping more.
I really like our weak sauce
Yeah.
claps.
Yeah.
Weak sauce.
But
Leave
both,
a comment in the comment section below to tell us which one you like
No.
more.
Oh God.
You'll be right next to Sean's dad.
Shout out to my pops.
Papa
Thanks for
Jacklin.
listening.
Both good movies though. Both fun. Like
Yeah.
I wouldn't call Thelma and Louise fun.
It was fun, man.
I don't
it's-
know if it has fun moments, but it's not a
Yeah.
fun movie.
it's entertaining. Like
yes,
it is
yes.
it is
not
like
the same
you-
thing as fun.
It is not boring. No, it's not a romp. There isn't a scene where Kevin Hart shows up in the plane and is
And
like,
talks
I
about-
can join your squad.
Yeah.
Huh? I
And
got skills.
the funniest joke of the scene is that his name is Dinkley, and they go,
Yeah. That was rough.
Ooh.
All right. Well, you know what? Normally I would be disappointed with this outcome, but I also had a pretty great experience. This was one of the first times where I've watched the classic movie, like a real classic movie, and enjoyed it from start to finish. So
Nice.
this is good.
Well, shall I unveil my picks for next week?
Ooh, I actually forgot that was a thing that we had to do.
Oh,
yes.
yeah.
I'm
Should-
so excited.
Yeah. Okay,
So,
let's do it.
yeah.
So
Let's
yeah,
do
so
it.
we all take turns. These were, of course, Daniel's picks this week, and Jack before that had his. And
Before we do this, should we
Oh, yeah.
close out with our Thanos trailers before we wrap up the two movies we're working on right now?
I like to give the
Yeah.
the two movies now because people might not give a shit about our Thanos teasers.
Yeah.
That's fair. That's
They
fair.
probably
this
probably don't give a shit about this at all, but
Yeah, exactly.
yeah. So before I reveal my picks, I do have to ask a question of both of you. Are you comfortable enough with the first Back to the Future film that, like, you know the plot?
Yes. I know that movie very well.
Okay, Daniel.
I know enough about it. I know generally, and I can also read like a synopsis on Wikipedia because I take it we're looking at like a sequel. We're looking at like Back to the Future
Yeah.
2.
You
I'm
nailed
guessing
it.
3. Oh,
No, Back to the Future 2. I did have to look into a little bit because I know it's not considered as good as the first one, not considered as much of a classic, but it has recently become a like cult pick
Okay.
of the trilogy. So our great film is Back to the Future Part 2, and it's going up against the film Idiocracy.
Oh,
Mike Judge.
Idiocracy. Can you just enlighten me as to the connective tissue for those two films?
Both films involve going forward in time travel,
Oh,
as you would say.
all right.
Back to the Future 2 versus Idiocracy.
Yeah.
Just so everyone also knows, we have like a decent list that we've compiled, just like obviously when we were coming up with this podcast, of various movies that we could compare.
Which we've totally detoured from at this point.
Yeah,
I think.
yeah. At this point, we're having fun surprising each other. These two never remotely came up. I think Sean just wants to watch Idiocracy, but I'm excited to watch it too.
I've never seen. I haven't seen Back to the Future 2 since I was a kid, I think. And Idiocracy, I watched once in like 2007 before I knew what movies were. So I'm interested to go back and see that.
You didn't know what movies were before 2007?
No, I lived in a fucking rock. Ask my dad.
I will in the comment section.
In the YouTube comments.
Yeah.
Idiocracy with Luke Wilson. Oh yeah, okay. Metascore 66. I think I'm gonna spend the entire time watching these movies just trying to think of ways to connect them to Star Wars.
No, that's my podcast.
All right, well then, there you go. Tune in next week for Back to the Future 2. That's the great movie of the two, right?
Yeah.
Versus Idiocracy. I'm excited. I've never seen Idiocracy. It's been recommended to me like 100,000 times.
I've never seen either one of these films, so let's do it.
Oh, we don't sneeze right now. Okay, so that's more or less the end of the podcast proper. But now we have a little addendum that we like to throw on because it's just fun. These are our Thanos.
Our Thanos teasers.
Our
anus teasers.
our anus teasers. Our Thanos teasers, which are kind of a little. It's a kind of I call it like a game. I find it a fun thing to do, where. Much like the Thanos teasers that we saw leading up to the climactic end of MCU Phase 3, I don't know, where we would see Marvel movies and Thanos would appear in a post-credit scene and have a brief moment and do something random building up to his entrance. We like to imagine the Thanos post-credit teaser that appeared for each of these movies. That's essentially what this is. It's a lot of fun. Feel free to send us any ideas that you have and play with your friends. It's a laugh. So, Thanos teaser. What do we want to start with? What movie?
Oh,
I wrote down. I had a couple little ideas.
well,
I think.
Thelma and Louise is we cut back. We go through their story, but we go through it in reverse up to the white screen that we cut to as the car leaps over the cliff.
Yep.
And we pick up right from there, and actually their car unshields itself, and it's been the Thanos mothership the whole time. And they like uncloak themselves, and Gina Davis and Susan Sarandon have been Thanos and Squidward the whole time.
Thanos and Squidward.
It's so funny. I had such a similar idea to that like, first of all, I like this premise for an initial starting point for this teaser, because by carrying on, like the movie finishes on a freeze frame of the car midair going off of a cliff, spoilers. But I like the idea of totally undoing the meaning of that shot and having it continue after the credits. So my idea was very similar to yours, which is that it continues and we see it fly over the cliff just as Harvey Keitel reaches the end of the cliff. And then as an homage to the earlier clip of the helicopter coming up, it's Thanos' ship coming up from the canyon, and then there's just the ladies are just waving from like the cockpit with Thanos, and then they take off, and that's it.
That's so funny.
Just ruins the whole movie, which I love.
It's a happy ending.
I had that exact same idea, but in my mind, it wasn't. They weren't in the cockpit. The car had literally landed on top of the ship. But also, funny story, what you just described, minus the Thanos part, was the original ending to Thelma and Louise. In the original ending, you see the car fly right off the cliff and like down into the rocks, and Harvey Keitel like runs right to the edge. And the final scene is on, or the final shot is on Harvey Keitel's face as he's looking down at into the canyon at like the wreckage, and then they decided that it was a little bit too
A little grim.
little bit too grim. I also have another one for for Thelma and Louise, where their story is over, and we just cut to Brad Pitt's character walking down the halls of a prison because he's broken his parole, so now he's walking into his new prison, and the bars to his cell slide open, and there's his cellmate Thanos sitting in the bunk bed, but Thanos is like a prison bitch. So he has the halter top and like the backwards bandana.
Oh man.
That's the entire thing. I just have Brad Pitt's cellmate as Thanos. That's my
That's it.
that's my whole note.
All right, I'm in. Oh, all right, Hobbs and Shaw.
What did I? Oh yeah, I had a stupid idea for this.
So for Hobbs and Shaw, I thought it would be really funny if Thanos is obviously the voice of the boss of Idris Elba's boss.
Yeah.
Right.
So, but it's actually just like we cut to just Thanos in a room with a bunch of his buddies, and they're just like sitting there getting their kicks from him, like bossing these people around and like speaking into a voice synthesizer to like make his voice all fucked up. And it's the whole thing is actually just like this weird like drinking game with him and his buddies.
Can I add that? Can I add that Thanos in this scene though? It's like much earlier on, and he's like very clearly like a teenager.
Yeah.
So he has like a pimply face, and he's like giggling.
Yeah,
with his like teenager buddies.
It's like the equivalent of
prepubescent,
like a prank call, but funnier. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Sean?
Yeah, go ahead, Sean.
I don't know, and I wasn't prepared with one for this. It's like again, I've said before, it's hard when there's a super powerful bad guy presence that exists in the universe, not to just be like, that's Thanos.
What are you trying to say, Sean? Are you taking shots at
No.
Jack and my idea?
No, I'm just saying it's hard.
Sean, is your Thanos teaser this week that it cuts to Luke Skywalker on Tatooine?
And the twin suns are setting over the dunes of Tatooine, and Thanos lights half the planet on fire. We get a new Star Wars, J.J. Abrams producing, directing, and it takes it, much like Star Trek, takes it in a different dimensional time vortex that he can just reboot Luke, Leia, Han Solo, all those characters, and it's going to be great, all out of this movie, out of Hobbs and Shaw.
That'd be the most ridiculous post-credit scene. I imagine it cuts to behind the scenes shots of J.J. Abrams like writing a script and pans down to what it is. And,
and it goes into his mind, and then it shows up.
And it's like him imagining casting, and it's like it's like you got the part, and then it pans at the script again, and it says like Han Solo. Like it's a very elaborate montage of what you're describing. And then we zoom out from that into the scene in Infinity War, and Thanos has gone through all of that before he snaps his finger. Right.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's either super deep or incredibly fucking stupid.
I think it's mostly stupid as all hell. Yeah.
My Thanos teaser is sometimes I like to have him like be a part of the story, and sometimes I think kind of like Dan, I just like to imagine Thanos in a silly costume. And for me, I think all it is that we just cut to like a Polynesian luau, and Thanos is in like a grass skirt and like with a wreath on his head,
a little ukulele,
and he's just like waka hoka daka daka waka hoka daka 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 waka waka, and he's like it's just like doing the dance to the waves, and he's really good at it. Yeah. Like his hips are moving, and that is it. There's no explanation, and
he's just having a good time.
Who doesn't like a luau?
Universal conquerors need to vacation somewhere too, right?
Yeah. But like the fanboys are like, how does that factor into the Infinity Gauntlet?
Yeah. I think you'll find the Power Stone would never be located in Samoa.
Sean.
So that's just me. Thanos in a grass skirt doing the hula. Or doing a similar Polynesian dance to the hula.
And I want all of our audience members to think of that image as Jack plays us out of this episode today.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, should I play us out? Were you thinking
I think you should.
Yeah.
You know what, Jack? I think this week maybe you should play us out.
Okay, you know what? Just for this week, I'm gonna play us out.
Okay.
I think you should.
And think of that image.
As Jack plays us out.
I wish I could do like a luau beatbox, but I don't have it.
Oh,
in
you
my...
should. You should try and do your theme, but with the Polynesian twist. That's not bad.
No, we're probably going to get some complaint mail. But...
So you can make your complaints out to Citizen Kane versus.